Hello, welcome to Beacon Church's Cafe 101. Cafe brewers that are opening the cafe should arrive around 7:30. At that time, the cafe brewing area should be prepared for you, free of all of the extras, carts and different things that the facilities team will have already removed for you. You'll have a cart here that allows you to bring your cafe items to and from the cafe easier. And so the cafe brewer is going to find the setup just like this. If the machine is not turned on, you might want to make sure that the first thing you do is turn on the cafe brewer by pressing that enable brew. And if you don't see a green light, that just means that it's going to be heating and you need to wait for it to start. As always, in the top above there, you'll find the essentials for brewing, and down below is where we store the coffee that needs to be ground. We try to make sure that the ground coffee is always left in this state so that the person who's brewing first thing in the morning has enough to get going. We try to brew at least 2 pots for the volunteers, and then we put some together so that as those pots become depleted, we'll be ready to go. Down below here is where you're going to find your cups and lids, your extra cups and lids, in case those need to be replenished. And up above is where we find the additional sweeteners, they can be refilled in the hospitality cart as needed. I'll show you in a few minutes, or in a minute, what we do with the sprayer, and for those of you who've never ground the coffee before, what that process looks like. So when you're brewing the coffee, obviously we need our filters and our ground coffee. If you've done it before, you know it's always great to have some paper towels underneath so that it catches any drippings and just makes for an easier cleanup. Now that I have the paper towel underneath, I like to put one filter inside and then fill each of the 3 cups just underneath the top. So it's just under half a cup. And so 3 scoops, just under 1/2 cup. And because of how much this coffee does bloom as it brews, we like to put 1 additional filter on the top. This keeps the grounds from spilling over into the coffee as it brews. Once you've got the basket in and the carafe underneath, literally all you have to do is press brew large for regular coffee, and it will begin. The light will be blinking, saying that it's brewing, and when it's complete, you'll put this little thing inside and the cover on top, and you're ready to brew your next pot. While that coffee is brewing, feel free to fill the half and half in the almond milk in the appropriate thermos container and put it on this cart over here to get ready to bring into the cafe. The cafe server will help make sure that these remain filled as necessary during the 2 services or during their service that they're working. Being mindful not to overfill them if you're in the second service, because we do often, we'll put them back in the containers if they were just recently opened. Otherwise, we'll dump them, and we try not to waste too much when we can. As you probably know, or most of you already know if you've been doing this before, when we open a new creamer, such as this oat milk creamer, we do like to put a date on the bottom so that we know. You should find Sharpies in this top drawer along with our sponges and some scissors, and you're more than welcome to keep your team volunteer tag in here as well for ease of finding it each week. So the Sharpie we just use to mark the bottom of the container with the date when we opened it. So since we grind fresh each week, I will try to take what's left from the previous week and distribute it into some just empty cups so that we can have that older stuff not mixed in with the newly ground coffee. Now that this ground coffee container is empty, we'll go ahead and plug in our grinder, the coffee grinder. It's already preset to the setting that you need, which is 18 for regular coffee. And this little the little basin is empty. So at this time, you just go ahead and fill the coffee with, fill the beans into the top of the grinder. And then we give each time we pour some in, we give a little spritz of this water, and that helps keep the coffee from having too much of the flyaway outer part of the bean. Just it tends to kind of create a little bit of a flyaway mess, chafing, whatever they call that stuff. I don't even know. So anyway, so we do spritz that every other scoop in. We just do one quick spritz, kind of helping to get rid of some of that static electricity. So it's pretty simple. Literally, you can grind one of two ways. You can turn this switch, or if you choose and you need to just do just a little bit, you can push that button at the top. Obviously, you push the button and hold it down. The line on there, on here, is mainly for us. If you were to do one full pot, you want to get it to that line, and then you have enough to brew one pot. But since we're just filling our container there, you can just let this go. Just keep an eye on it so that you don't overflow. So when it comes to the decaf coffee, we do not grind that because we don't go through nearly as much decaf as we do regular coffee. So we do use a pre-ground coffee for the decaf. And depending on the week, we'll do either a full pot or half a pot. The full pot uses 3 scoops of coffee, and a half a pot uses 2 scoops. And when you do a small pot, which you can do a small pot of regular coffee as well, if you feel like we just need a little bit more, and not a full pot to get through a service time, then in order to do a small brew, all you do is just use 2 scoops of coffee per small brew. And then you just press the small brew button with the carafe underneath, and you get just a half a pot or a little less. It's like just under a half a pot of coffee. It's a great way for us to maximize the use of our grounds without waste. So we do tend to do a small brew for the second service, say, if there seems to be just enough, but not quite, so we don't run out. So as with the regular coffee with the decaf, I did choose to do a full a full pot because it is Mother's Day and we may have a few more guests or a few more people coming in. I did do a full brew. I'm going to do a full brew, and we just use obviously the decaf decanter or the carafe for decaf, and again, we put the filter on top because the decaf does tend to bloom a lot as well. So we'll do the large brew for the decaf. So once the cafe brewer has finished brewing and they have all of their items on the cart, they can bring them in, and the cafe server will have gotten the cafe itself where people get their coffee ready. And at that point, the cafe brewer can just do a little cleanup in this area, making sure that it's all set for additional brews if needed, or if we're at the end of, if we're in between services, get ready for an additional brew and maybe begin the cleanup process, just making sure that it's free of debris and, everything is wiped down, because we do want to make sure we have a nice clean environment for brewing. Now we'll be moving on and see what it is that the cafe server is responsible for. All right, so this is our cafe, and the cafe server would be responsible for staging and setting up of the cafe cart, the table when it gets here, and then we are doing the heating of the water for our tea out here in the cafe. It's a lot easier, quicker to get to. We usually fill this pot outside at the water bubbler in the main auditorium, and just have to push that down. And I like to have it heated early in the morning, and then we just have to push it one more time to heat it back up to boiling as people are arriving. All right, so the hospitality cart will come into you like this. You just turn the handles and everything that you need is right here. Our coffee mats go on top, and that's where we put our carafes to kind of preserve the wood from too much of damage from the coffee. And these are all our items. These cleaning and paper products are not really used as much in our everyday, every Sunday. Those are more for our Beacon Life items, but occasionally we'll use them on a Sunday. The coffee, tea, and sweeteners have the basket with all the teas and our hot cocoa. It'll have the stirs and the extra sugars and other sweeteners. The info supplies and the volunteer bin really just has our tablecloth for the table, as well as the communion cups that Chris Lianos, or our aisle host, will need. Down below we have our water. We like to put at least a dozen or so waters out for each service for those people who need it and don't want coffee. Then our cups, lids, and cafe organizer bin, that holds the organizer that has our sweeteners, our stirs, our little beverage napkins, the lids, and that goes on the secondary table, and then we put the cups out. The next part you'll see will be the table fully, or the cart fully set up. All right, so here's the start. Cups, teas and sweeteners, or what teas? The sweeteners. Today is Mother's Day, so therefore you'll see a nice little sign with handy-dandy Mother's Day cards. And here we have our organizer. So the final product in our cafe, we have our creamers with our little coffee and good days start with coffee and Jesus. Our cafe organizer with all of the sugars, our lids, stirs. We put some waters out there. Generally, this is where we would put our waters, but because it's Mother's Day, we have that set up. We put our decaf, our water, the teas and cocos, cups, and then our regular coffee. Try to keep enough separation between the decaf and the regular so that it's very obvious to people which one is which. And that is pretty much it. The coffee server, once they get this all set up, coffee server's main role is just to smile, make sure that there's enough coffee in each of the carafes, and if occasionally checking the heaviness of the almond milk and the half and half, making sure that those are filled, and really making sure there's enough water out. So it's just monitoring everything, checking on the status of the hot water, making sure it's still warm, that there is enough, getting additional cups if they need it, and then letting the brewer know that there might be a need for more coffee. The brewer generally will come out and sometimes spend some time out here if they've got everything all set in the brewing area, and they can do the running back and forth, so that somebody's always out here being a greeter and just letting people know that the coffee is free and they're welcome to take it into service. If you ever have any questions, please just feel free to reach out to your team lead, and they are more than happy to help. Be sure to let your team lead know whether there are items that are running low. Anything running low in the cart can be found in the cafe storage area, and if it's running low there, definitely make sure that the team lead knows so they can order more. I hope you find this video helpful. God bless.